Hello, everyone. Welcome to Slash Film Daily for July 14th, 2017. I'm Peter Soretta. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the 69th Primetime Emmy Awards, the nominations, the snubs, the surprises. With me today, I have a whole boatload of Slash Film staff writers.
Ben Pearson.
Brad Oman, a.k.a. Ethan Anderton.
And Jacob Hall.
The 69th Annual Primetime Emmy Award nominations were announced yesterday. Westworld came out on top of the drama side with a total of 22 nominations across the board. On the comedy side, Veep was the leader with 17 nominations. And the miniseries Feud also fared well with 18 nominations. Outside of the leaders in the pack, shows like Stranger Things, This Is Us, Big Little Lies, Night of, and Handmaid's Tale made a big splash, plus Saturday Night Live had a big presence this year as well, tying Westworld with 22 nominations. You can go to slashfilm.com, read all the nominations. What I want to do is I want to delve into really the snubs and surprises. So let's start with Brad. What is your surprise?
Well, one big surprise was Shannon Purser got nominated for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Drama Series. If you don't recognize that name, she plays the now very popular cult character Barb in Stranger Things. As we all know, Barb disappeared pretty early on in the first season of Stranger Things and never came back. And
spoilers.
She was sort of mistreated in a way, in that they never really resolved her disappearance or anything like that, and no one seemed to care afterwards. So there's been this whole Justice for Barb campaign, and this is a pretty good way for Barb to get some justice by getting an Emmy nomination.
For sure. Let's move on to Snubbed. The Leftovers was one of the shows that was snubbed. Jacob, you're a fan of this series.
I am. The Leftovers is great, but The Leftovers is also challenging and weird and difficult. It is not a show that was ever going to have a big audience. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know how many people remember the first episode of The Leftovers, but the first episode ends with the main character opening fire on a pack of dogs, which is the show's mission statement of saying, hey, this may not be for you. And it never was. And the Emmy voters, they may be industry people, but there's still a lot of people in one place. They still represent sort of the mass appeal, what's going to appeal to the most number of people. And Leftovers, as weird and dense as it was never going to appeal to them, even though if you gave it the chance, it is probably the most powerful show on TV in the past couple of years.
Another snub this year is Mary Elizabeth Winstead for Fargo Season 3.
I actually thought season 3 of Fargo was maybe not quite as great overall as the previous seasons, but Mary Elizabeth Winstead's performance as Nikki Swango, I think, ranks up there with the best performances in the history of the show, all 3 seasons so far. I was disappointed to see that she didn't get some recognition here. I think she brought a ton of different layers to this character. There was a time in the beginning of the show when her character is like a sort of a low-level criminal and sort of a con woman, and there was a time in the beginning of the show where I wasn't sure if she actually did truly care about her boyfriend, who's played by Ewan McGregor, or if she was actually grifting him or conning him in some way. So just the idea that she was able to sort of keep her character's true nature hidden for a little while and then go on this amazing journey during the back half of the season where she basically turned into like a revenge-driven badass was really great. And I wish that people would have maybe watched the show and taken her work a little bit more seriously.
Yes, I think that performance should have been recognized. Brad, comedy performances, give us a surprise.
It was really refreshing to see both Pamela Adlon and Zach Galifianakis nominated for their respective shows, which are Better Things and Baskets. FX definitely gets some attention for their comedy series, but nowhere near as much as networks and cable channels like HBO. So these shows didn't even get nominated for series or any other nominations, with the exception of Louis Anderson as supporting actor for Baskets. So the fact that these two got lead actor nominations in their respective categories for comedy is awesome, and they're well deserved too, because these are two just unique shows, and the performances by each of these stars is outstanding.
For sure. One of the shows I was expecting to see on here somewhere and kind of got snubbed is the Netflix television series 13 Reasons Why. You know, that show was always better than it should have been. It started off as a YA novel, and it was elevated by the filmmakers that were involved that included Oscar winners Tom McCarthy and Jessica Yu, as well as Spirit Award winner Greg Araki. But I think Netflix is happy nonetheless because they got nominations in the drama series category and best comedy series category, so they can lose one with 13 Reasons Why. Next up in the snubs category is The Americans. Brad, tell us about it.
The Americans is simply a fantastic show. It's been one of the best shows on TV for a while now, ever since it debuted, and for a long time, it got snubbed by the Emmys. And it's gotten some recognition over the years. Even this year, both Matthew Rhys and Kerry Russell got nominated for lead actor and lead actress. But the show has again been snubbed in the best drama series category, and I just wish that the Emmys would come around and just give the show the love it deserves, because it is an outstanding, slow burn, Cold War thriller. Like you need to enjoy it.
For sure. And while Mary Elizabeth Winstead was a surprise that she wasn't nominated for Fargo, Carrie Coon was, but not nominated for The Leftovers.
Look, I like Fargo. I watched the first 2 seasons. I have not seen a third one. I cannot speak to Carrie Coon's performance specifically in Fargo, but I can speak to her work in The Leftovers, where she's the heart of the show, where she is the best character on the show, where her portrayal of this woman whose life was shattered and then forced to reassemble itself and then to carry everyone else around her is just this powerful, beautiful, heart-wrenching thing. You feel physical pain watching her in the show, and you realize this is a performance that gets her work. I mean, she would not have been cast in Fargo if the people at Fargo had not watched The Leftovers. That's how good she is. But like I said a little bit earlier, Fargo is a show that's popular with the Emmy voters, and Leftovers is not. So I can't help but feel this is sort of the consolation prize of, hey, we like you, but we're going to award you for the show that we all like instead of the show that nobody watches.
No, I think you're right there. Carrie Coon was fine in Fargo, but she was amazing in The Leftovers, and it's. I'm sorry that she got snubbed for that. Going on to another snub is the comedy show The Good Place. Brad, why was The Good Place snubbed?
I mean, I don't know why it was snubbed. I mean, a big part of it is probably just because, Emmy voters, don't really know what they're doing most of the time. No, but seriously, The Good Place is one of the rare, fantastic network comedies on TV right now. It only had a 13-episode first season. It debuted mid-season, and it's from one of the executive producers of Parks and Recreation, Michael Schur, and he's created this great world that takes place in the afterlife that gives a quirky spin on both heaven and hell. And Kristen Bell and Ted Danson are both amazing in this show. And there's so many cool surprises and twists and turns, which is really surprising for a comedy. The show totally deserved to get some nominations from Emmy voters, but it just didn't get it, and it's a real shame.
I like both of those actors, and I've watched the pilot for the show. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I would recommend anybody who does like the show, go check out Jason Reitman's student film, In God We Trust, which I think whoever made this show must have seen, because it shares way too many similarities. Moving on, though, in the snub category, Michael McKean for Better Call Saul. Now, anybody watching Better Call Saul knows how great of a job McKean has been doing on this series. He's basically playing Jimmy McGill's older brother, Chuck McGill, and he's been doing a masterful job mixing the brilliance and strong ideals of a prestigious lawyer with the sensitivity of a positive, possibly mental illness that's going on in him having to deal with that. But the thing is, it does something that every great villain or antagonist does, that he has a point of view that is completely valid, and not only is it valid, but we can understand it, and it's many times right. But, he's not the lead character, so he is the antagonist. And in an alternate universe, it could be, his show, and he could be the protagonist, and he just did such a masterful job with this. It's too bad, because this is likely his last season on the show as a major character, so this was his last chance to reward him with an Emmy nomination, but oh well. Moving on, another surprise is a Marvel animated production, Rocket and Groot. Ben, tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is a 12-episode series that I had really not paid much attention to before this. So this is one of those rare times where the Emmys actually taught me something constructive in life instead of just disappointing me bitterly. But this is a 12-episode series of shorts, and the style is based off of the art of Scotty Young, who comic readers will probably recognize that name. He's done a ton of art for Guardians of the Galaxy stuff and Rocket and Groot in particular. And the style of these shorts is amazing. You guys should definitely check it out. The one that I linked to in the write-up on the site is only like 2 minutes long or something. I think that's sort of a standard runtime for this little series. So it's surprising that the Emmys, the voting board, would actually pay attention to something that's sort of so small. But after watching it, the art style is just so gorgeous that it justified the nomination for me in my mind.
Disney on television has been doing some great stylistic stuff in their animation department. Moving on, though, to the snubbed category. Brad, why was Insecure snubbed?
I mentioned this before as one of the shows that probably should have been nominated instead of Modern Family. I feel like maybe the other two HBO comedies that got a decent amount of nominations, both Veep, which was the leader on the comedy side, and Silicon Valley, probably overshadowed Insecure a bit. If anything, there's some silver lining here in that there's time for Insecure to grow and for Emmy voters to come around and pay attention to it. Issa Rae in particular is a great lead. She's a fresh voice on the comedy side of things. And hopefully Emmy voters will come around sooner than later. But yeah, I think it was good enough to get some, Emmy love this year. But it wasn't.
Westworld is doing really good at this year's Emmys with 22 nominations. But one person that was not nominated is Ed Harris as the Man in Black. Jacob, why is this a snub?
I'm just confused by this because the Emmys have a habit of saying, "Oh, you're a movie actor. Let's give you a nomination. You're coming down to play with us from the big screen. Oh boy!" And they did it this year with Anthony Hopkins in Westworld. But I thought for sure Ed Harris would also grab one because he's the villain of the show. He's the rotten core at the heart of Westworld. His looming cowboy shadow connects all the show's timelines. He's the big puzzle piece in the final couple episodes that connects it all. And throughout it all, Ed Harris is just the show personified. He's just this menacing tourist who is totally aware of Westworld being a theme park and a playground. And he knows all the rules and he delights in breaking them. And he's just this great menacing figure. And the scenes that he shares with Anthony Hopkins are spectacular. And I don't want to say anyone else who was nominated for Westworld deserves to not be nominated because it's a really strong cast. But the Emmys just have this habit of giving the bigger names nominations. They've been doing it for years. And I'm just surprised that Ed Harris didn't sneak his way on here.
Another surprise this year is Saturday Night Live. 22 nominations, tying Westworld. Even me, who is not a big SNL fan, has recognized that this season of SNL, especially with the current political environment, has been one-upped. Brad, talk about SNL as a surprise.
Yes, this was huge. Usually SNL gets several nominations each year, but a lot of them it's below the line stuff, or it's for writing and directing, and usually a couple of the hosts end up getting nominations. But this season was one of the highest rated they've had since the 90s. And it's been huge. Tons of the sketches have been going viral, like you said, because of the current political environment. Alec Baldwin got a rare, flat-out outstanding supporting actor in a comedy series nomination just for playing Donald Trump, which usually doesn't happen with SNL appearances at all. And then half of the outstanding supporting actress in a comedy series nominations went to 3 of the female cast members, Vanessa Bayer, Leslie Jones, and Kate McKinnon, which just goes to show you how strong the female cast on SNL is right now when you can nominate 3, of the members and still, not even broach, all of the great females that you have on that cast. And then on the host side, Tom Hanks, Dave Chappelle, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Melissa McCarthy, and Kristen Wiig were all nominated for the episodes that they hosted. So this was just a huge year for SNL. The fact that they tied Westworld for most nominations is incredible. And if you're wondering why we didn't say SNL led the comedy side of things, it's because SNL isn't technically in the comedy category. It's actually in the variety sketch series side of things. So that's why you have that dichotomy there.
Also snubbed this year is Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and Rachel Bloom. On the site, our own Hoai Tran Bui, wrote this up, and she said that Bloom, who created, writes, and stars in The Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, gives a wonderful manic performance as Rebecca Bunch, a neurotic, flawed comedy heroine for our time. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is doing some of the most perceptive takedowns in musical form, no less, of comedy tropes on TV, and it's a shame that it's not recognized for that. Moving on, another HBO show, Snubbed. Girls, Brad, tell us about it.
Yeah, this was the final season for Girls, and you would have thought that the Emmys would have given a little bit of, I guess, respect for the series coming around after all these years to an end. But it only got some guest actor and actress nominations, and not anything else that was a major award category. So I'm not necessarily sure that Girls would have deserved something bigger, but the Emmys do like to sort of reward the show's culmination when it comes to an end. And since it had been nominated several times before, you would have thought that would have happened, but it just didn't happen this year.
We've been talking a lot about the comedies and the dramas, and we even had a variety show, but we haven't really talked about reality television. And one of the surprises this year comes from the reality television genre. Brad, tell us about it.
This is just so weird that you can't, talk about Emmy nominations without talking about this show. For those who haven't heard, Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg have their own reality show called Martha and Snoop's Potluck Dinner Party.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and they got nominated for being outstanding hosts for the show. It's such a weird combination, but I've heard from someone, I don't even remember who it was, but someone told me they watched it, and they say that, like, just the chemistry between them is hilarious, and they work surprisingly well together.
Another snub that a lot of people are talking about is Winona Ryder in Stranger Things. I'm a huge fan of the show. I'm not sure Winona's performance, some people thought it was too manic. It was a bit divisive, but it was something that anytime you talked about Stranger Things, any review, it was a focal point of it. So a lot of people were surprised that Emmy voters did not recognize it, at least with the nomination. I'd be interested to see if next season 2 of Stranger Things, if her performance is a little bit less hysterical and maybe she has a little bit of a more meaty role that might be more Emmy friendly. Moving on, though, another surprise. And I'm not sure why this is a surprise because everybody seems to love the show. I'm not really watching it, but it has that kind of like Friday Night Lights vibe and Parenthood vibe. Brad, tell us about This Is Us.
This Is Us is a surprise, not because it was nominated as a show, but because of just how many nominations it got in some of the acting categories. It took half the slots in the Outstanding Guest Actor category and 2 in the Outstanding Lead Actor category, which is kind of a big deal. Not even Westworld pulled that off. So the show just feels like it has an even bigger presence than people who already love the show thought, and so it was a surprise to see it land even more nominations than were expected.
Strangely, with all those actor and actress nominations, Mandy Moore snubbed. I'm kind of surprised. Next up in the snubbed category, Jacob Paul, tell us about American Gods. This is a show I only watched a couple episodes. It was a little too much for me. Why do you think this was snubbed?
Oh, Peter, American Gods is my jam. It is my thing. It is everything I wanted in a show. It has old gods battling new gods. It has graphic gay sex between a man and a djinn. It has Ian McShane casually fighting plant monsters in a police station. Oh goodness, this show it has a main character. It's a leprechaun. It takes its own sweet time and has flashbacks and flash forwards and doesn't explain anything ever and wants you to keep up at all times. And of course, nobody nominated it for any Emmys. We're talking about a show so good that one episode is about the ancient god of the forge remaking himself into the American god of guns. And then we see his guns shoot the Mexican Jesus as he tries to help refugees cross the border in the United States. It is the best show, but nobody likes it because it's that show.
Well, maybe in the second season, it might get recognized. Moving on to another show. This is another one that you wrote up on the site, Jacob, and that is Transparent. Tell us why. Why do you think Transparent was snubbed this year?
This is a weird one. I'll be honest. I haven't watched Transparent, but it's been in the press for so long, and it's been so respected and so liked. It's been a critical darling, and it's been nominated for so many awards the past 2 years. Then this year it only has a handful of acting nominations, and this is just the whims of the Emmy voters. I mean, they'll keep Modern Family up there for a decade now, but they'll say like, "Oh, we're done with that show." I remember that happened to Lost a couple years into its run. They just decided they're done with Lost. And I don't know if the Emmys are done with Transparent, but they seem to be, at least for this year.
Our last and final surprise is that Carrie Fisher, the late, great Carrie Fisher, was nominated.
Yeah, if anything, this is just a cool surprise more than anything. She was appearing on the third season of Catastrophe. But this is her last television performance, and it's just nice to see Emmy voters show Carrie Fisher some respect after passing away. From what I understand, her appearance on the show is sort of a perfect way to send her off, not only from the show, but from this world, as it were. So it's just a nice little thing for Emmy voters to give one final honor to Carrie Fisher.
Before we go, I just want us to pick. Personally, what is going to win the top few categories? So for outstanding drama series, I want personally to win Westworld.
I'm right there with you. I absolutely want Westworld to win. I think this first season of the show has been one of the best seasons of television I have seen in a long time, and I mean that like the entirety. Like there was not a single episode where I was bored, and this is the first time since Lost where I've been so obsessed with a show that I've been following theories and read everything I could after an episode aired just to, absorb every possible detail. And so, yeah, Westworld, I'm all in for it.
Jacob, which one of these shows do you want to win?
Westworld is going to win, and I love it so much, but Better Call Saul is better.
I love Better Call Saul, but that's fighting words right there. Why is Better Call Saul better than Westworld?
Westworld is amazing. Westworld is also built its first season on a mystery we all solved 2 hours in, whereas Better Call Saul has marinated in its characters for 3 seasons, and this season everything blossomed. All the things we've been waiting to happen happened, and everything that we've been dreading started to creep up through the cracks in all these characters, and watched them fall apart and triumph and destroy and despair this season was remarkable. And the kind of long-form television that Westworld will achieve in its own season 3.
I've been telling people that this season of Better Call Saul was actually better than a lot of the seasons of Breaking Bad, and people call me nuts, but I agree. Ben, what's going to win Outstanding Drama Series?
I mean, I agree. I think Westworld is going to win. Personally, I would much rather see Stranger Things win, though. To me, Stranger Things was the show of last year. It came out of nowhere in such a major way and surprised all of us. And I know there's already been a backlash, as these things are wont to have. But I am firmly on this show is great bandwagon, and don't plan on getting off it anytime soon, unless season 2 is a massive letdown in the vein of True Detective season 2 or something like that. But I would love to see Stranger Things take this one home.
Okay, for Outstanding Comedy Series, I think if I was going to have to pick a show, it would probably be Atlanta. I'm loving what Donald Glover is doing there. I love the style of the show. I love the comedy. I love the drama. I just love almost everything about it. Silicon Valley was good this year, but if I would have to pick one, it would have to be Atlanta.
I would absolutely love if Atlanta won as well. Donald Glover put together one hell of a first season of TV. He acted in it, he writes it, he produces it, and he's just he really poured everything he had into the show, and you can feel it in every episode. If Atlanta somehow doesn't win, I think I would like to see Master of None take the prize, because the second season is fantastic, and Aziz Ansari is another comedian who has poured himself into this series and does a lot to bring it to life and make it his own. So I'd be fine with either of those winning.
So yeah, I'm sort of right there with Brad. I think Atlanta and Master of None would probably be the two that I would be the happiest if they won. But the one I have to go with the word comedy, and to me that means which show makes me laugh the most, and that's Silicon Valley, hands down. If I were to pick based on just the criteria of the category alone, I would have to go with Silicon Valley.
Jacob, I'm looking for you for a different choice. Do you have a different choice, or are you with the slash film group here?
Oh, I'm going to divide my answer into two parts because I'm important. Veep will win because it was Veep's worst season, and that's what the Emmys do. They always award the worst season. But Master of None deserves a win because it is the most beautifully made television comedy of all time aesthetically. It reminds me of 70s Woody Allen. It looks stunning, and everything within those stunning frames is on point and sensitive and well thought out and beautiful. And it makes me laugh and cry in equal measure. And it's as complete of a show as an experience of any show on this list. So Master of None deserves a win. Veep will win.
And we're just going to do two more. We're going to do Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series. Brad, who should win?
Oh man, that's a big question. I think I'm gonna go with Anthony Hopkins for Westworld. He's the heaviest hitter in the category, and he was great in Westworld. Simply put, there's no beating around it. Like he brought such gravitas to the role, and you hang on every single word that he says whenever he's speaking. And so yeah, I think that Hopkins should take that one.
Yeah, it would be tough to fill that role with any other actor. I feel like that role of being like the Walt Disney of that world is a tough role. I would have to pick Bob Odenkirk for Better Call Saul. I think what he is doing this season is like worlds above what anybody else is doing on any of the other dramas, for me at least. And it walks that fine line of comedy and drama, and he does. It's so subtle and so funny and heartbreaking and sad. It's some good stuff.
I'm with you, Peter. I hope that Odenkirk takes it down. I actually gave up on Better Call Saul, but I still love Bob Odenkirk as a performer. And even in the first season, his performance was one of the best things about that show. And I think that the fact that the show has gotten a nomination for Best Drama Series shows that the voters at least are paying attention, and maybe they're paying close enough attention to sort of give him the win over a bigger name like Anthony Hopkins.
I'm also Bob Odenkirk. I don't think I've ever seen a performance quite like this, where we're watching over a course of 3 seasons, a guy with bad instincts fight against them, only to very slowly have the cracks appear within him. And we're watching this season in particular was all about watching this good guy succumb to his worst instincts, and us rooting for him not to do it, but every single episode him taking that one closer step to darkness. And it's sort of the inverse of Walter White, who sort of seemed to embrace it a little bit more and kind of cheered that on, whereas with Jimmy McGill, we're just watching this good guy tear himself apart, and it's so good. It's so good. I can't get over how good he is.
I agree. Let's end this thing with Outstanding Lead Actress in the Drama Series. I'm not sure who I'd pick, so I'm gonna go right back to Jacob. Jacob, who would you pick for lead actress?
This is my Westworld pick, Evan Rachel Wood. It's not just a technical thing, even though she plays that more than any other leads. She has the robotic thing down. She gets the repetition, the physicality, the mannerisms of her programmed being. But also they end up turning her story into a survivor story, into someone who realizes that she's been a victim of assault and violence and tragedy for her entire artificial life. And having her guide us through this machine, discovering her humanity and discovering that not only is she a person, but she's a person who is built to be abused, is this fascinating piece of sci-fi ideas that she brings all this humanity to. And I like everybody else on this list, Kerry Russell, especially from the Americans. Evan Rachel Wood is doing things I've never seen done before, and that deserves some praise.
Ben, who would you pick?
I think, man, it's tough for me to say because I actually don't watch a lot of these shows. I'm like Brad, I haven't seen The Handmaid's Tale yet, but I think Claire Foy might. I think Claire Foy might win. I think the Emmys tend to like to reward the new fresh faces. I think it's kind of one of those picks that you might not see coming, and they tend to revel in making decisions that sort of go against the grain sometimes too. From what little of the Crown I have seen, which is not very much, admittedly. I still need to check out that series in full. She has this vulnerability and like sort of a steely resilience that I think might resonate with these voters. So we'll see what happens.
You know, after thinking about this for a bit, I think my pick would have to be Robin Wright from House of Cards. This season, which isn't the best season of the show, but she kind of steps it up. The spotlight is more on her than it is Kevin Spacey's character, I think, this season. And you get to see how tough and vulnerable and, you know, there's more layers to her character and how she plays it. And I think as much as I love Westworld and what Evan Rachel Wood is doing on that show, I think what Robin Wright is doing, it just shows more layers. Brad, do you disagree?
I'm going back to Jacob's pick because I think it's the best one. I agree with everything he said about Evan Rachel Wood's performance in Westworld, especially her robotic stuff and like the way she can turn it on her emotions and then turn them off just as quickly. It's fascinating and mesmerizing to watch. She's so good at it, and it's a performance different than any of the other actresses in this lineup. And so I think she deserves it.
Okay, guys, that does it for our Emmy rundown. When you're listening to this, I'll probably be at D23 Expo. Wish me luck. You can find more of all of our work at slashfilm.com. Where can we find you guys on Twitter?
I'm Ben Pearson. You can find me at Ben Pears.
I'm Bradford Oman, a.k.a. Ethan Anderton, and you can find me at Ethan_Anderton, as well as my own podcast called Go Flix Yourself, Flix.
And you can find me at Jacob S. Hall on the Nightmare Machine known as Twitter.
You can find a full list of all the Emmy nominations on slashfilm.com alongside our Surprises and Snubs article, which was referenced on this podcast. This does it for today's episode of Slash Film Daily. Please, if you are enjoying this show, go to iTunes, leave us a review, rate us. It can help spread the word, tell your friends. If you have an email for the mailbag, send it to peter@slashfilm.com. Please leave your name and general geographic location so we can reference it on the air. Or if you just have general feedback, send it to that address. Again, that's peter@slashfilm.com. See you guys on Monday.